Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Looking at the Mexico and the United States border, we're looking at an area that's over almost 2,000 miles long, covers over 15 million people. And it's very important to the United States, to Mexico, but also to the world that we have organizations that are very strong. They're working and developing new best practices for the environment, economy, and civil society development. We have Andy Carey, who is the Executive Director for the U.S.-Mexico BPP, and we have that logo right in front of us. And we're going to be talking about the network partners of his U.S.-Mexico BPP and why having a broad range of people involved is so critically important to not only the work of his own organization, but also to the borderlands, as they're called, and also to the people and nation of Mexico. So, Andy, welcome to the Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you, Sam. It's great to be here.
Now, looking at the BPP and the network partners, tell us why that you really depend so much on partners and you're looking across both sides of the border in order to do this. And I think this is an incredible photograph that I'm sharing right now as far as it says unite. Why is that so important to bring networks together?
You know, the U.S.-Mexico border creates an environment where we are inextricably linked. What happens in Mexico impacts the United States, and what happens in the United States impacts Mexico. We share the same waters, we share the same air, and you can see in this picture, this was a project that was done to help mobilize volunteers to engage the environment. We did this with I Love a Clean San Diego, and this is a picture of Playas de Tijuana, and there's volunteers and a couple of SEALs participating in the lineup of the message that says "Unite for the Sea," and those are all people lined up to help encourage clean water, clean air, beach cleanups, to help support the environment. This was an amazing initiative, and to be able to pull this off on the same day on both sides of the border, to get the governments of both countries to agree to let us do this because we're in a secure area, was just simply remarkable. But it really is important to come together as a community to support the environment.
Yeah, I think this is really important. I've left this slide up a little longer than normal because I think visually this just gives you an impact of what we're dealing with as far as the borderlands are concerned. And we kind of think of the borderlands as something very remote. It's out in the middle of the desert and all that. We don't think about there's such huge urban areas on both sides of this fence. And so this is something that we really need to change the image, the understanding, and the dynamic as far as how people can interact with each other and collaborate and work together. But this is what you're really trying to protect. This is just a pristine photograph. Andy, tell us what we're looking at and why it's so critical that we must absolutely protect the environment on both sides of the borderlands.
You know, when you look out into the oceans, no matter where they are in the world, it's important that our oceans be free of trash, because from the oceans we have all the marine life that exists to help participate in this great environmental world. And it's important that those waterways be clear and clean, free of debris, free of plastic, for the greater good of everybody, for our marine life and for those of us in human life. And so it's important to call attention to this work. People don't understand how the trash that we create in our own homes ends up out in the ocean when you live in the middle of the country. But it absolutely does. When we send our recycled products over to China and they end up back in the ocean, we need to be better stewards of our environment and how we all play a role.
Now, looking at it, this is just, I mean, some of these photographs are almost breathtaking, but it's really interesting how that you're really a hands-on organization. You're working with, as you say, academia, businesses, nonprofits, health organizations, K-12 for education, and, fairly really every kind of group that exists. But at the same time, there's a certain sensitivity and appreciation you have for not only the environment, but also the aesthetics. How are the aesthetics so important to the work of the BPP and with the network partners that you have?
We have a network of 336 organizations from across civil society, academia, business and corporate partners, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and foundations, and they each contribute to the environment in their own unique way. Some of our nonprofit partners are just doing amazing projects working on the aesthetics for our region in their cleanups, in their recycling programs. They mobilize volunteers to go out every day, to go out and clean up areas, to plant trees. It's amazing. Without them, our region would look totally different.
Yeah, and this is something how can you not like this photograph? But, this really goes to the heart of the borderland areas and really how beautiful some of these areas truly are.
We are blessed in the borderlands to have access to two oceans, the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. We have the mountains, we have the desert, uh, we have it all, and so it's important to take good care of it, to be good stewards of our environment. It really impacts everybody.
Now, going back to this, we talked about this a little bit before, but looking at the network partners, how through these three different organizations are you really able to reach down into literally thousands of different communities and try to bring out and tease out, if you will, the best ideas, the best practices, but also have that human energy that's so necessary to make all this work because we really, most of what we do in society depends on volunteers and willing stewards from the communities.
Yeah, it's a great question, Sam. And the organizations are doing truly heroic work. Whether you're a nonprofit that is mobilizing volunteers to do a beach cleanup, the waterways, or to call attention through public policy advocacy, no matter how they're contributing, they're doing an amazing job. But one of the things that's important around mobilizing volunteers is it also helps create an important resource to keep these initiatives going, and that's raising money. So a lot of these groups, by mobilizing volunteers, it actually creates an elevated sense of social consciousness in the
Mhm.
people to support important issues related to the environment, related to their public health, and it creates great advocates for these initiatives.
Yeah, and look at that, and this is something that we've had up before, but I want to keep re-emphasizing that, and that's why it's back in here about the border. It matters now, it matters to you. How do you get the YOU into all of this so that people feel like they really are a part of it and they have ownership in this, and so they have to take responsibility for it?
The border does matter, and it matters to everybody across the United States and Mexico. They may not realize it if you live in Iowa or Illinois, where I grew up,
Mhm.
but it does have an impact. We share the same water, we share the same air. What happens in Mexico impacts us. And there's really a tie back to every single family, every single household. And so this is an effort to help raise their social consciousness, their education level, and their understanding of how important the environment is and how we have to protect it. Everybody needs clean water, everybody needs clean air. And the more we can do to highlight how we can bring that out together, will help all of us.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. What are we looking at here? I mean, this is a beautiful photograph, but what's the, not beyond the visual impact, what is the impact as far as the environment is concerned? And again, how is this accentuating our appreciation of the natural world?
What you can see here in this photograph is the shared waterway between the United States and Mexico. And as you can see, it goes into from the United States into Mexico, and it also comes back into the United States. So we're in this together. And I say that because it's the two governments, the two communities, both peoples. We have to come together around these issues of mutual benefit, and the environment, clean air, clean water. It impacts all of us because these are our shared sacred resources, and we need to be good stewards of them.
And that's something I'm glad you brought that up. You don't normally hear that, Andy, but a key word. These are shared sacred resources, and that's something you learn from, Native Americans across all their different sovereign nations they have around the United States, 567 plus of those, and it's really important. But they really emphasize the sovereign nation of that. And when you look at this pristine view, you understand it really is how sovereign, but at the same time, how sacred it really is to all of us.
It really is. And, when you go out into these areas and you see people leave litter behind, it really just breaks your heart. We can't do that because it damages the waterways, it damages the natural landscape, and we need to be good stewards of these for generations to come.
Now, looking at the waterways that we have here, we think of this as really a very dry area. Most of these areas, struggling to have fresh, clean water for drinking, also for agriculture, recreation, all the other uses. So, how are you using the network partners in order to restore maybe some of these lost lands that we really need as far as to have the transpiration for rainfall, to filter the heavy metals and the other waste that comes down through the water and into the land? How do we use these networks and allow them to help us restore what maybe we have lost in the past?
It's a great question. First and foremost, this photograph is of the Tijuana River estuary that exists between San Diego and Tijuana. And it's important because when heavy rains come in Tijuana, it actually takes trash and other debris, and it puts it into the waterway, and it washes it out into the sewers, and it ends up in the Tijuana River estuary. So it's filled with trash. This is very, unfortunately, dirty water. And there's an effort going on right now around public policy to help inform people about better municipal governments around trash collection and recycle programs, around the importance of cleaning up our water, and also putting in municipal infrastructure so that we're not damaging our waterways on a regular basis. The beaches get closed because the dirty water comes out, it goes out into the ocean, and then you can't go out, and you can't surf, you can't fish, you can't swim, you can't do anything. And so it's a problem. And so what the organizations in our network can do is we can raise public awareness, we can mobilize volunteers to clean things up, we can hold our elected officials accountable. There's lots of things to do.
I'm going to leave this up. We're running out of time, and we have about 15 seconds, Andy. You got to be quick. What do you see as far as expanding the networks of volunteers for the future?
We have a great opportunity. There's lots of issues and opportunities to address, and with the goodwill of the people, we'll have more volunteers, more organizations providing much needed community leadership around the environment, around public health, and other issues so that we can have a thriving and prosperous U.S.-Mexico border region.
Andy Carey, the U.S. BPP, thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.